Hi, welcome back to my reloading bench. I've been asked to do a video on the steps that I use to produce 45 Colt ammunition. I'm going to show you some items that you can see laid out on my bench, and these items are all items that are going to be necessary in the reloading process. Okay, and I'm going to go into detail on each item a little bit more here in a minute. This is a quick view of the items that we're going to need. The first thing that's the most important, in my opinion, is your safety glasses. Make sure that you have a good clear thing of safety glasses so that you don't have scratches and things that can hinder your vision, so that you can see what you're doing real clearly. Now I want to tell you that I'm going to be sharing some load data with you today, and I want to warn you to be careful and don't trust data that you get from me or anybody else on any of these videos on the internet. Okay, do your own research and come up with your own data, do your own homework, because I'm by no means a reloading expert. I'm only showing you some of the techniques and some of the things that work for me. Yes, I'm going to be showing you load data, but don't rely on my research. Okay, do your own. Some common places that you can find load data would be two common places. One would be books, such as this Lyman 49th edition. That's one way of finding load data. I also have a Lee book. I have a Hornady book that I've used in the past, so books is a good option. And the other option is to get online and go to the manufacturer of the powder that you're going to be using, which in our case today we're going to be using a flake powder called Unique, made by Alliant, and they have a nice little website. I'm going to move in here slowly and hopefully you can see this. AlliantPowder.com. So you can go to their site. They have their own load data there, and that's how you get these printouts. You can print them out. They're from the Alliant website. Okay, AlliantPowder.com, reload, blah blah blah. So today, like I said, we're going to be doing the 45 Colt 200 grain bullet. It's going to give us our recipe. Okay, but like I say, don't rely on what I do. You get your own homework and do your own thing. You're probably wondering what the oil's for. The oil's real simple. I put a couple drops on the ram of the press, and this helps lube it up a little bit. It doesn't take much. I just put like one little drop on there. Just a little bit of oil. Doesn't take much. Just enough to keep this press young. Keep it nice and lubed up. We're going to be using that. So let me put this oil away now because I don't need it anymore. Okay. Some of the stuff that you're going to need, although I have a lot of items laid out here on the table, not everything that you see here is necessary. But there are 6 things that I think are absolutely necessary, and I'll name those. The first thing is a press. You got to have a press. Today we're going to be using this Lee single stage, very inexpensive press. Works great. I have mine mounted to a 2x6 that I've routed, little channel in there, and I have it clamped to the bench. It works good. I use clamps. You're probably wondering, how come this guy doesn't screw it to the bench? How come it's not solid? Well, that's because I like to move it sometimes. I like to move it, put a vise in there. Sometimes I move it and put other things there, different press, whatever. So when I decap cases, the little primers fall in this hole, and they used to go into here, but I've routed a little channel out there, and that's where my spent primers go. I just routed this little area out. Works pretty good for me. What some other fellas were doing is they were taking and drilling a hole underneath here, and the primers were falling out the bottom. But I personally don't like that option. I'm not saying that they're wrong or anything. For me, I'm a woodworker anyway, so it was easy for me to just router a little a little spot there for the primers. The next thing on the list of items that you're going to need is your dies. Got to have some dies. Today we're going to be using the RCBS Carbide 45 Colt dies. 3 die set. Pretty good dies. Third thing on the list is your shell holders for your press, because some dies, like some of the Lee, some of their dies come with shell holders and some don't. This is a shell holder that I bought. It's an RCBS. I believe it's a number 20. This will fit the 45 Colt. It'll also fit the 454 Casol, but you need a shell holder. Now, you notice I want to explain something. You don't want to get this shell holder mixed up with this type of a shell holder. Okay, notice this one's a flat bottom, and the other one had a little ridge, or I don't know what you want to call it, but it's got this little part on the bottom. It's not a flat bottom. This is the kind of shell holder you need. This is the one that goes into the press. Okay, this type of shell holder is what we use in our auto prime tool, and they come in a set like this. They're made by a Lee. These are just for the auto prime tool. So the flat bottom ones, that's not what we want. Of course, yes, we need those for our auto prime tool, but we don't, they won't fit in the press. The third thing, or excuse me, that was the third thing. The fourth thing on the list that we have to have is primers. Today we're going to be using CCI large pistol number 300 primers. Going to need some bullets. Today we're using the Hornady 200 grain jacketed hollow point bullets. These guys right here. 45 caliber. They do not have the cantilever. And last but not least, we talked about it briefly, and that's your powder. Okay, unique powder. Now I'd like to take you through the steps of what I use and things and how I do my process. So the first thing is I'm going to talk about checking out your cases, cleaning your cases and inspecting them. So I'm going to put this camera on a tripod and I'll talk to you about checking out your cases. So like I said, first thing, you want to go ahead and inspect these cases. Make sure that you don't see any bulges or cracks or anything wrong with them, because if you got any kind of bulges or cracks, like if you got a primer that's sticking out or something like that, that could be a sign of excessive, maybe you had a hot load in there before or something. Make sure that there's no cracks, no splits in the mouth of the case, anything like that. So as I inspect them, I move them from one hand to the other, since I'm only doing 6 today. Now if I was going to do like a batch of 50 or something, I'd move them from a pile to the loading block or something like that. But I'm just really quickly, I'm going through, filling them, making sure there's no signs of overpressure, no cracks in the mouth, the neck of the case or nothing like that. I just want to make sure that I'm going to be using some good cases. This is a quick step. Doesn't take much time. Just a very quick, painless little step. So now that I've inspected the cases and I've found that they're all good, we're going to go ahead and lube them. Okay, and so for that to happen, I'm going to get a piece of paper over here. See this piece of paper, I'm just going to lay it down on the bench. And I'm going to lube these cases. I'm going to put the mouths of the cases towards us. You're probably thinking, why is this guy lubing these cases? He's using carbide dies. He doesn't need to do that. Yeah, you're exactly right, I don't. But a little lube never helps, or excuse me, never hurts anything. So let's go ahead and lube them. I used to use the old case pad and the oil and the lube and all that, but I don't do that anymore. Now I use this DCL, this Dillon case lube, and I really like this stuff because on the back here where it says contents, you can see that it has two items. It has lanolin and isopropyl alcohol, and it's really nice because what they do is they use the alcohol as a propellant to send the lanolin onto the cases, and then you let the cases sit for a few minutes, and the alcohol dries off, and then all that you have left is the lanolin. So that's it, one squirt, they're ready to go. I just have to let them sit for a little while and they're going to be good. Next step, we're going to take the dies, we're going to use our decapping die, and I'm going to install the shell holder and I'm going to install the decapping die. So I'm going to move my camera a little bit, get a better angle of the press, and I'll show you that step. So again, we've already found that we have the correct shell holder, the one with the little notch on the bottom. So I'm going to raise the ram a little bit, and that notch fits in this little groove. And I just push it straight back and it'll kind of click into place. That's all there is to it. The dies, we're going to install the decapping die, and this die is you can tell it's a decapper because it has the little capping pin. That pin pushes out the old primer, and as the case goes up into this die, it resizes the case. This one has a carbide ring, so technically you don't need lube like I said, but it never hurts to lube them. So I'm going to start threading this down, and I'm going to raise the ram all the way, and I'm going to thread this die down until the die body touches the shell holder. Once it touches, I'm going to back it off a 1/16 of a turn, and then I'm going to just gently lock this lock ring down. And this lock ring doesn't have to be real tight. I'm going to use these channel locks just to snug it. It don't have to be crazy tight. Some people, God, they think everything has to be gorilla tight. It don't. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, tight as some people think. So now the next step in our process is we're going to take those brass that we lubed just a minute ago. They've been sitting there. The DCL may have had a chance to dry now. So I'm going to go ahead and get those 6 cases. Bring them over here. I like to set them on the desk, on the bench here. Some people use loading blocks and things like that, and I do too sometimes, but you know, it's kind of I'm only doing 6 rounds today, so we're staying away from the loading block. I'm going to insert the case and I'm going to raise the ram. What's going to happen is it's going to resize the case and it's going to knock the old primer out. And then I come down, and so we've just decapped and resized that case. See, we've knocked the old primer out. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there's a good view. You can see through the flash hole there. So it's a clear, you know that there's no obstructions. Obviously, we just put that pin through there. One thing I want to mention is if you're ever reloading like this and you feel anything get caught up or something feels like it's jamming, stop and look. I've seen so many people, oh, it's stuck, let me push harder. That's not a good idea, people. You know, pushing harder ain't gonna fix anything. You know, every time I've ever tried to do that when I first started learning to reload, and yeah, I've made that mistake before. I thought, well, hell, it ain't gonna go, let me push harder. Every single time I've ever done that, the result was not what I wanted. You know? So we're decapping and resizing. And that's all there is to it. And as you can tell, I'm not using my press real fast or real hard, nothing like that. So now they've all been, the old primer's been knocked out, they've been resized, and now we need to trim them. So I'm going to use that Lyman universal trimmer. I don't know if I talked about it earlier, but I'm going to use this guy right here, this Lyman universal trimmer. And I've already got it set to the correct length. And I'll show you how we determine those lengths before I trim them. So I'm going to set the camera here, and I'm going to get that trimmer set up, and I'll be right back with you. So bear with me. So what I personally like to do is I like to take my trimmer and I mounted it to a 2x4 here. So I have my Dillon swedger that I use for swedging 223 bullets, because they had the primers crimped in, and this takes the crimp off of that, but we don't need that today. We're just going to use this Lyman universal trimmer. So let me move these dies out of the way. I have this little block of wood here. I'm going to set it underneath. You're probably thinking, wow, this guy, what is he doing? You know, but it really does. It works good, because I use my bench for everything. I'm going to use one of these little clamps. And I'm just going to clamp it down. And it doesn't have to be real tight, just snug. You know, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my trimmer. Set this brass over here. And at this point, I know I keep stepping in front of the camera here, but that's not my intention actually. I'm gonna go take this camera back on hand, and I'm gonna read into the book, and I'm gonna show you some things. Some things like case length and stuff like that. So let me move that paper, move these dies a little bit, because I'm going to open this book. So bear with me here. I already have the page bookmarked of our 45 Colt. Oops, trying to hold this camera and open the book is not easy. Okay, so here we are, the page 45 Colt. And you can see I have a little piece of scratch paper because I'm going to write some things down. Now, first thing I want to talk about is this number right here. 1.285. That's from the tip of the brass to the end of the brass, right there. That's the overall, excuse me, the length of the brass itself. But if you look, they give you another thing that says trim to length 1.275 inches. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. Trim length 1.275 inches. And we're doing 45 Colt. Okay, bear with my handwriting. I'm trying to hold this camera and film and everything at the same time. But the scratch paper, the next thing we need to find out is the overall length of the completed bullet. So from the tip of the bullet here to the base of the bullet here, that would be this number. Okay, 1.600 is what this chart says. But because we were using these Hornady bullets, we're using 200 grain full metal jacket, or excuse me, jacketed hollow point, 200 grain jacketed hollow point. Sorry about that. We're going to come over here, and it gives us a length for that specific bullet, and that's the overall length, 1.580. So I'm going to write that down. Overall length 1.580 inches. The next thing I want to talk about is the charge that we're going to use. Now remember, we're using Alliant Unique powder. Okay, and we're using a 200 grain jacketed hollow point bullet. Right there it says Unique. And in this Lyman book, the started suggested load is 11.2, and they say not to go past 12.2. However, I'm going to show you. I went to the Unique website, downloaded their data charts, and for their jacketed hollow point, they show a load of 9.8 grains of powder. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to bump up, and I'm going to load these at 10.5 grains of Unique powder. Okay, 10.5 grains. That's the number we're going to do. Now also in the book, remember it said from 11.2 to 12.2. Okay, now that's the spectrum that we can be within according to the book, but like I said, we were looking at the data chart from their website, and again they said 9.8. Okay, but there's one more number we need, and oh, we already have it at 10.5. That's our load. Okay, that's for a 200 grain jacketed hollow point bullet. So bear with my handwriting, but anyway, I wanted to make sure I write that down on a note. Now let's get back to the tripod and we'll get back to trimming. I just thought that it would be important to show you that data and let you know where I'm coming from and how I came up with that, with those numbers. Okay, so there's the trimmer, and you can see the brass sitting on the table next to the trimmer. So I'm going to move this book. I'm going to just take this scratch paper that I wrote that data on, because that's the important information I need. I'm going to set it over there by my press, close my Lyman book, and I'm going to take those charts that I got from the website. I'm going to put them with my reloading book, and I'm going to set those aside for now. We're going to talk about trimming now. But another part of case prep is to get this brush and run it into the mouth of the cases. Now you can do this before you trim or after you trim. It doesn't really matter. I personally like to do it before. I'm going to insert the case. We're going to start putting the guide inside the case, and then we're going to lock it, hold it, and trim. You see all that brass flying off. That's a good trimmed case. See how shiny that mouth is? Now what I'm gonna do, you know, we need to chamfer and deburr next, but I'm gonna trim all these first and then I'll chamfer and deburr all in one step. So again, second one, I'm gonna take my brush again, run my brush into the case, make sure it's clean. Insert it into the trimmer, put the pilot in, start trimming. You can see all that brass flying off. 2. Let's do 4 more and then we'll be done. Three more. Now if I had to trim a lot of brass, I would clamp this thing down a little tighter. Now the way this trimmer works is it has this black piece right here. I'm going to use this screwdriver as a pointer to point to it. This black piece, as I push and I'm spinning, as I push, when this black piece comes in contact with the body of the trimmer, it stops. It can't go anymore, and that's how it knows that that's the correct length. It just cannot go anymore. And of course there's 2 little set screws here that you can loosen. Take those set screws out, and these black items will go in and out depending on what length you need to trim. See, these cases definitely needed trimmed. See a lot of brass flying off of them. Now see how the mouth of this one's dull? And then I'll show you what it looks like. Hopefully this one will trim a little bit so I can show you the shiny mouth now. So there. After you trim, it's a nice shiny mouth. So we're done with the actual trimmer. I'm going to unclamp it and move it out of the way. I like these quick clamps. They work pretty good. For me, you know, for my reloading area, they work really good. Move this out of the way. We're done trimming. My little wooden block. Now we'll come back to our cases, and at this point we're going to use 2 things. We're going to use this chamfer and deburring tool, and we're also going to use this little screwdriver to clean out the primer pockets. So again, hope I'm not getting too far in front of you. Let's move you a little bit. So we're going to use this tool to get the outside. We're going to do this. Doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. So we're going to set them aside, and basically we're going to do all 6 of them. And what it does is it helps make them you know, when I go to seat the bullets and such, it makes them seat really, really comfortably. Makes the bullets go in real nice. Doesn't take much. Sometimes when I'm reloading, if the dogs are out here with me, they hear that squeaking and they think there's birds or something. That's funny. They look at me, they move their head all funny and they look at me like, what the hell is it? What's that noise? It's pretty funny, I crack up. Okay, so I've got them all trimmed. Chamfer, D-bird. Once again, I'm going to make sure I got the brush because I don't know if I skipped any of them or not. Plus, I want to get, if there's any metal particles inside, I'm trying to get them out. And it doesn't take a lot of time to do this step. It's not 100% necessary, but I like to do it. I like having good, clean ammunition. You know. Now, this little screwdriver, I use this, you're going to laugh, but I use this to clean the primer pockets. Because there's, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of carbon or something that gets in there. Especially if you got, you know, old cases or something. Now you see how dirty they are? And then after I clean them a little bit, it doesn't, you know, it cleans them up a little bit. You know, not that big of a deal. You could actually probably skip this step and not miss a beat. You know, not have any problems. But I like my primers to seat well, so I just take an extra few seconds and screwdriver works good. I mean, they make a little tool that you could use, but to me it's just they're charging you 4 times as much for that tool, and it does the same thing a screwdriver does. But I don't know, I might be biased. Okay, now the next step of this process is we need to bell the case mouths. Okay, and you might not know what the word belling means. That means we are going to expand the case mouth so that the case will accept the bullet. For that to happen, we need to have a bullet so that we can look at the bullet, and we need to remove our die and get our second die, our belling die. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this decapping die. We don't need it no more. And put the new die in. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo this adjustment. Hopefully here, it's kind of tight. Put this in. I'm going to thread it down until it touches, like I said, until the die body touches the shell plate. And I'm going to go down with the ram and up. A couple threads in, that'll lock it so I can undo this nut here. There. Now let's unthread this. Now we'll back it out and we'll reseat the die until it touches the mouth and back it down. So I might have got a little confusing here for you. So let me talk about to me it all makes sense because I know exactly what I'm doing here, but for you the viewer, I might have done that a little fast, so let me reiterate to what I just meant. I'm going to raise the ram, okay, of the press, and I'm going to thread the die down until the die body touches the shell holder. Okay, once that happens again and it touches, I'm going to back it off about 1/8 of a turn, and then I'm going to lock down this lock ring. Okay, doesn't have to be real tight. I have a bullet sitting next to me that I'm going to use to check the cases to see how they're doing and how they're fitting. Now you're probably wondering what this washer was for. I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm going to take these 6 cases and before I bell the mouths of the cases, I need to check my trim length and see how they are. Because remember, the little note that we wrote down the trim length is 1.275 inches. So let's turn on these digital calipers. 1.275. I hope you can see these numbers. 1.273. That one's good. 1.272. Good. 1.2735. Good. 1.2730. 1.2715. And the last one, 1.2715. So we're doing good on our lengths. All of our case lengths are good. Now we can start belling the mouths of the cases because we know they're trimmed well. So I'm going to stick a case in here. I'm going to raise the ram and I'm going to thread this belling insert down. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the mouth of the case so that it'll accept a bullet. Wow, we've already got it. Boy, that was fast. So let's put that case back in, raise the ram, and we'll tighten that setting down. And when you adjust these dies, make small adjustments. Don't make real large adjustments. Make real small adjustments. Because if you get too much bell on your case, you might have some problems. So you want the bell of the case mouth expansion to be just barely enough to fit the bullet in there. Because let me grab a case that has not been belled. Let me move that one out of the way. This one has not been belled, and you can see that this bullet doesn't quite want to go in there. Trying to get it, but it won't quite go in there. So that's why the importance of having a case that's been belled. You know, it really helps when you go to seat them bullets. So that, again, we're going to expand the case mouths on these. And you don't want to get excessive in the amount of case mouth expansion, because if you do, if you get too much of that going on, you might have problems in the life of the case. They're going to start splitting around the mouth of the case and stuff like that. So you kind of want to avoid that. Wow, I can't believe I nailed that setting so fast. You know, but generally what you would do with this die is you would start with this backed out all the way, and you'd raise the ram, and it would give you a little bit of belling. And as long as that, you know, until that bullet fits in there nice and, now you don't want it to just drop in there. You want it to fit in there. But you, like I say, you don't want it loose because you're working that brass too much, and the lifespan of that brass will be diminished if you're constantly stretching it out, pushing it back, stretching it out, pushing it back, and you want to avoid that. The mouth the mouth of the case, the life ain't going to be as high. So I have all 6 of them. I've expanded the case mouths, I've belled them. The next step is to prime the cases. So once again, I'm going to use CCI large pistol primers number 300. And I'm going to be using the old style Lee Auto Prime tool. My handle broke on this thing, and they make a new one called the Auto Prime XR, I believe they call it. And you can't get the old handle for the old one anymore, so I ordered the new handle for the new one, and it fit just fine. I've already installed the appropriate shell holder, number 11 for 45 Colt, and I'm going to take 6 primers and stick them in there. Then we'll prime these cases. So I need 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 10 in a row. There's 100 in this little box. Let's get those. Flip it over. Set that aside. Make sure I have 6 of them. And if right now they all orientated themselves the correct orientation, but if they were flipped over, I'm going to mess this up on purpose. Now you shouldn't be touching the anvil of the primers with your fingers, but I'm only doing this for the video. See how these two, the anvil's down? Well, these little rings on there, so that when you wiggle it, they orientate themselves with the anvil up. And that's what you need, because when you go to put them into the case, you want them with the anvil up. So I'll put this little lid on, close my primers. I don't need those anymore. And I'm going to start priming these cases. Now, right now I have this case pointed to you. That's not a good idea. I need to point it away from me, because if in fact this primer ever did go off, I need to have it pointed in a safe direction so that it doesn't, you know, you have a little small explosion. I don't need to have it exploding in my face. Now, I'm showing you the bottom of this case. These primers, they need to be seated flush or just a little bit underneath. Okay, they need to be a little bit flush at the most. But generally speaking, we want them to be a little bit recessed. Okay, so that one's been primed. We're going to prime all 6 of these. 2. And I'm putting my finger on them to feel them. To see, you know, I want them just mildly recessed. 2. 3. These cases are tight. That's good. 4. 5. You know, I said it's good that these cases are tight. What I really mean by that is if these cases were loose, then we could have problems with primers falling out of the bullet, you know, and we don't want that. We don't want the primers to fall out when the bullet goes off. So it's very important that those primers are kind of tight in these cases, and make sure they're recessed just a little bit. Okay, now that we've got them primed, the next step is to add powder charge to the cases. So I'm going to move this thing one more time, and I'm going to really zero down on that scale. So we're going to be showing you some measurements and stuff of powder, and hopefully you'll be able to see the numbers on the scale. So I'm making a quick adjustment here on my tripod, and hopefully this will work for you. So I've got the scale sitting there. I have my brass. I'm going to use my funnel, my little bowl, and I'm going to open my scale up. And I'm going to set my bowl on there. Now these bullets, I'm going to set these bullets aside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this little bowl with some powder. Just a little bit, not a bunch. Just a little bit. I'm only doing 6 bullets. So that should be more than enough. So I have the powder there. I've got the 6 cases that I'm going to powder. And I have my funnel. I have everything I need. Now what's going to happen is when I turn this scale on, it's going to zero the scale to the bowl that's sitting on it. I hope you can see those numbers. 0.0. So once again, let's come back to our paper, and we're going to load these at 10.5 grains of powder. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to just scoop a little bit of powder till I get to 10.5. Ten 10.2, 10.3, 10.5, 11.0, so we're a little bit high. Remove a little bit. 10.8. Now I'm saying that we're a little bit high, but in all honesty, Remember these small numbers, 11.2 to 12.2 is what the Lyman book said. I'm just using that as a reference. So even if we had one that was, 11 grains or something, we'd still be okay. But I'm going to try to make them 10.5, 10.6, somewhere around there. Now if you want to get another measurement, just lift the bowl, set it back down. It'll reset the measurement for you. So we're at 10.6. I think we're good to go on that one. So I'm going to take one, put my funnel on, and there's my first one. First one is charged. Set it aside and make sure that the scale zeros. Another way you can do it is if you turn the scale off, you place a empty case with a primer in it. Okay, you don't want an unprimed case or the powder will fall out the bottom. So you turn the scale on and the scale will zero to that case. So you could also do it that way. So we know that this is zeroed, but I'll show you that here in a second. So I'll set that case there for a minute and I'll show you something. You're gonna find this interesting. Let's find this charge first though. So I'm gonna zero back to the pan. We're gonna get 10.5, 10.6, something like that. And then I'll show you this little trick that I learned. Pretty cool trick. 9.0, 10.2, 10.5. Right on money. Let's go a couple more granules. 10.6. Because I loaded some yesterday and they most of them came out 10.6. Perfect. Okay, so we know that the load that's in this bowl is 10.6 grains. So I'm going to set that aside, turn the scale off, and again, like I said earlier, I'm going to zero the scale to that case. Now let's not forget we're 10.6 here in this charge. So we're zeroed to this case. Move it aside. Let's insert our powder into the case. Set the funnel aside and weigh it again. 10.6. That's another way of finding your weight. Set it aside. Now we're going to go back to the pan though. Now you see the number says 11.4. That's because the scale is zeroed for that last case and not for this. So we got to calibrate the scale again to that pan. Now I want to talk about something. I'm going to zoom in on these numbers for just a second. Okay, hopefully you'll see this. It's showing 0.0. Watch what happens to the scale when I blow air on it. And I'm not even blowing that hard. Wow, we jumped all the way up to 23. We were in the 40s there. What I'm trying to tell you is if you have a fan or something in your reloading area and it's anywhere close to your scale, be aware that fan could be blowing and it could be affecting your measurements. So make sure that there's not any kind of wind or any kind of... You just saw that thing jump up to 40 something and you don't want it to lie to you and give you a bad reading because you have a fan going or the door's open or something. The wind, from outside or whatever. 10.6, so we're good. Let's go ahead and charge this one. So you want to always be aware of that. A lot of people don't know about that. They think that, the scale's just going to be accurate no matter what. No, if you got air involved, man, you got to be aware of what you're doing. Like I said, we're building bullets. We're making ammunition, and there's not a lot of room for mistakes. 10.6. What a lot of guys do, you notice how when I lifted the tray it went down 10.5, 10.6. What a lot of guys do, the process that I'm using right now is I'm measuring everything one at a time, and a lot of guys have these little powder dispensers, and I used to have one. I ended up selling it, But that's a good way of going too. You know, it's a quick way of getting a measurement, you know, pretty close. And some guys have them little tricklers where they'll trickle up. They'll make it where it throws like 10 grains or something, and then they'll trickle it up to 10.6, for example. You know, and that works good. I used to have one, you know, I get kind of precise. You know, you could see the fluctuation of the variance involved. Like I said, on our paper here, we could go from 11.2 all the way to 12.2, but so we're well under the tolerance of what this bullet can handle. We're not by any means getting close to the high side of anything. We're doing everything nice and mild. Last one. I don't generally like loading anything hot anyway, because I've seen that some of those hot loads, they don't perform as well. The bullets tend to tumble and they don't hit as good, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong on that, but that's just from my experience. I think that, you know, I go by the recommendation of what the book says. And I'll show you something else here while I'm thinking about that. Let me get my book and then I'll bring it right back here for a second. Bear with me. Let's go back to this 45 Colt. So we're done with the scale. I'll put that away for now. And I'm going to lay this book out. I'm going to show you something. 45 Colt. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Might have to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just take it on hand. It might be easier. Sorry about the fingers there. Okay, so you see all these little recipes, and it shows you different numbers and things. You see this one in bold letters, 2400, and then it's showing 21.5 grains in bold. What that was for that particular bullet, that happened to be the powder that they used that had the most accuracy, and that was the weight of the powder charge that they used to find the most accurate load. For example, if we shifted down and we were using a 240 grain bullet, jacketed, what is this, HC? I'm not sure. I'd have to look and find out what that HC means. But if we were using that bullet, you see that the unique is in bold at 12.5 grains. So, but we're up here and we're using unique at 10.6. And 2400 is the powder that they say runs best at 21.5 grains. But I just thought I'd show you that, share that information with you, because I didn't know if you understood that or not. Okay, so now that we've got these cases charged with powder, we're going to have to take the belling die out of the press and install the bullet seating die, and we're going to start seating bullets. So I'm going to show you two different ways of seating bullets. Very good ways, and hopefully you'll like what I'm fixing to show you. So here we go. Put this book away. So I have my cases. Let me back this camera up a little bit. Check my angle here again. Bear with me. There, that's better. Okay, so I have these 6 cases sitting in front of me. They've all been charged. I have my 6 bullets here that I'm going to use. Before I seat any bullets, something that I personally like to do is I like to get a flashlight and I like to look down in each case and compare the powder charge levels and look at them and make sure they're uniform. And in our case, they all look good. And you can see that step didn't take me long at all, and I'm already done. So we're good. Now it's time for us to insert. We're going to remove our case mouth expanding die, and we're going to put in our bullet seating die. Like I said, I'm going to show you 2 ways of adjusting that die. Now, like I did before, I'm gonna loosen this, but I'm probably gonna have to put the die in again so I'm gonna raise the ram. I'm gonna get the die in to where I can feel it, touch. I'm gonna lower the ram, go down a couple more turns, raise the ram. That'll hold this thing in place so that I can loosen this lock ring. I want to back everything out. Now again, let's go back, and I want to raise the ram, come down until the body of the die touches, and now I'm going to back it down a quarter of a turn right there. I'm going to gently lower the lock ring. Doesn't have to be right on the money, it just has to be close. Small adjustment. Make sure this bullet seating stem is all the way out. Now this bullet seating stem is designed for round nose bullets. So I want to make sure that it's going to work with these bullets that we have. So I'm going to compare the bullet seating stem to the bullet that we're using, and it looks okay. Now if I wanted to use this one, this is a different one. This is for flat nose bullets, you know, so if I was using like a wad cutter or something. But I'll go ahead and use the rounded one. So I'm going to insert this in. I'm going to lower. I'm going to take a case, insert it into the press, put a bullet in, and raise the ram. And I'm going to lower this bullet seating stem until I feel the bullet start to seat. Now remember, the overall length that we're looking for is 1.580 inches. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to check my length. 1.580 is what we're looking for. Remember, when you open these calipers, to open them slowly. 1.66. So what we need to do is we need to go down more here. Raise the ram again, seat it a little deeper. Take the bullet out, check your measurement again. 1.61. A little more. Clockwise, I'm turning it clockwise. Check our measurement again. 1.580 is we're looking for. We're at 1.596. So we're still a little bit. When we start getting close to our target of 1.580, these adjustments need to be smaller adjustments. So now I'm going to just barely turn a little bit. If I was to turn that thing like a full revolution, I might go under what the length is. 1.586. So I'm looking for 1.580. Let's go a little more. Actually, that might have been a little much. We'll see. One 1.582. We need 1.580. We're getting so close. $1.5790. So we're just under. We're right on the money. That's perfect. 1.5785 is what it was. Now that we have the bullet depth pretty close to what we need, we're just a little bit under, just a thousandth under, so we're close enough. I'm going to go ahead and back off this bullet seating stem, and you're probably wondering, what is he doing? I'm going to loosen this die. I'm going to take the bullet, and because what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a very mild taper crimp to the bullet here. Okay, so I'm going to come in, raise the ram, lower the die until I feel it touch the bullet. From that point, I'm going to lower the ram slightly, make 1/16 of a turn, and raise the ram. Inspect the cartridge. We're looking for a small taper crimp. If it's not enough, turn the die body another 1/16 of a turn, raise the ram, inspect the cartridge. We're looking to bell, or excuse me, not bell, but we're looking to crimp the case around the bullet. Now that looks pretty close. Let's go just a hair more. It's very small adjustments, okay? These are very ticklish adjustments. So you don't want to make them too crazy. Okay, now that looks good. So we're going to raise the ram with the bullet in there, and we're going to lock this lock ring. Now what's happened is we've just dialed in the crimp setting for the taper crimp. Now we have to go back and find the bullet seating depth. So we're going to raise the ram, we're going to lower this bullet seating stem until we feel it touch the bullet. Then we're going to come down and gently, just very gently lock this lock ring. Okay, set that bullet aside, and now we're going to apply. We're having two operations at once now. We're crimping and seating the bullet. So we're going to come here, crimp and seat. Now let's check our measurement. Make sure we're good on our measurement before we go further. 1.5785, that's good. If you want to back this out just a hair, that's okay. That'll give us probably 1.58. I'm going to do probably 4 of these. Let's check the measurement. 1.582, so we're mildly over. Loosen, tighten, loosen. I said that funny. Loosen the lock ring, tighten the bullet seat a little bit, and tighten back the lock ring is what I meant to say. So we're tightening it up a little bit. Let's check our length. 1.58 on the button. 1.5795. We're looking for 1.580, 1.579. We're good. I'll do one more. .5785, so that's good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mess up all my adjustments on my die because I want to show you how to copy a bullet. So let's undo all these measurements, all these settings that we just spent that time establishing. Okay, so I've redid all these settings to 0. Now let's say we have a cartridge. Now I have 4 here that I've done, and I have 2 that I have left to do. But let's say, you know, before I did all this messing up these adjustments, I would have just finished the bullets, because I'm just showing you the process of, excuse me, what it takes to get those dies set to do. You know, once you get them set, you know, it takes 1 or 2 rounds to set these dies generally, and once you get them set, you just continue on the rest of the 48 or however many bullets you're doing. You just bang, bang, and you're done. But the reason I messed up all these settings is because I'm going to show you another bullet. Okay, I had this setting up on my computer. Suppose this is the bullet. Okay, I have 4 that I did and 2 that I need to do, and an extra one in my hand. This is one that I did yesterday, 45 Colt. And let's say I didn't want to waste all my time trying to dial in the settings and everything like that. So what I would do is take in a bullet that I know is already good. Let's see what the length is. 1.580. See that? I don't know if you can see that. 1.580. So let's say I had this bullet. Well, then what I'll do is I'll make sure everything's backed out, you know. I'll raise the ram, as long as you don't feel any resistance. Raise the ram all the way. Lower the die body down until you feel it touch the case. Good. Tighten lock ring. What I'm teaching you right here is how to copy a bullet. Now lower the bullet seating stem until you feel it touch the bullet. Okay, small adjustments. Now this is a quick copy. Okay, I'm going to set that bullet aside because that's the one I'm using to refer to. Now I'm going to take a new case and a new bullet, and I should copy that setting. Crimp and everything. 1.589. So let's make a small adjustment. Let's check it again. 1.5785. So that quick, we were able to copy that bullet. Now we could go to town. If we had 40 more to go or whatever, we just seat the bullets. 1.58. 0. Looks good. Now this one was a little bit over. It was like 1.582. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of a push. There we go. That knocked down. Yeah, that knocked it down. 1.5795. See that? Hope you can see those numbers. 1.5795. So that is, I'm going to put this bullet away so I don't get confused. That's what a couple techniques that I use to seat the bullets and get the crimp going. How to adjust the die accordingly and all this. Now that we have those bullets done, there's one last final step that I like to do. I'm going to take this camera, re-put it here, and I'm going to talk to you about the last step in the process of what I use to reload. Okay, let's move away a little bit. Bear with me here. I am not a camera expert by any means. Okay. Last but not least, take these 6 bullets that I just made, put my tools away real quick. I have a little paper here that comes in the box of bullets, and it's the load data paper. Okay, it's important to fill those out. That way you know what kind of bullets you've got. So I'm going to fill that out. Today's date, March 9th. 2012. Caliber 45 Colt. Case Winchester. Primers, we use the CCI large pistol. Powder unique. Weight was 10.6. The bullet Hornady, .200 grain XTP, and I usually put the number of the 45140 because there's a little number on the bottom of the box here. I usually put that number down. So you're filling out this tag to show you exactly what those bullets are. Date, what primer you used, all the bullet specs and all that. Okay, so we finished that. Very last step, take your rag, wipe off the excess lanolin or whatever that we had on there. Make sure you get the cases nice and clean, and you're inspecting them. You're inspecting them for anything, because sometimes you'll be reloading and you might have one that had gotten hung up in one of the dies, especially if you're doing a lot of rounds. You know, you're making 200 rounds or something. You're just cranking on that press, you know, going fast, because like I said earlier, once you get the dies set, you can go to town on how fast you're gonna crank out those, you know, those bullets. how fast you're going to crank the handle. So I'm cleaning them, I'm looking at them, I'm making sure the primers are seated well, making sure the brass is good, everything looks good. So there's the 6 bullets that we've done. That's the completed rounds. I'm going to take this camera back on hand and I'm going to talk about one more little thing. We're almost done here. There's the completed rounds. Those look really sharp. 45 Colt ammunition. We have our information on them. These things over here are case length gauges. And I don't have one for 45 Colt. This one happens to be 38 Special. And what you do is you take the bullet and you drop the bullet down in there, and it tells you the length of the bullet and how much, you know. In fact, I ought to just grab a bullet and show you. So bear with me here. I'll grab a 38 that I put out the other day. Let's see. Bear with me. Here's a 38 Special I loaded a few days ago. These case length gauges, you just drop the bullet in and you see how flush this thing fit. It didn't go, you know, it's not sticking out. If it was sticking out like that, you might have headspace issues, but it went in real nice. That's what's so nice about those case length gauges. You can get those for 45 Colt. Another thing you want to check for is the bottom, that the bullet is not extruding past the bottom of this case length gauge. You see where it's just barely under? If it was sticking out the bottom, then my overall length would have been too long. And I don't have one of those for 45 Colt. So what I'm gonna do after I turn this camera off is I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna take my revolver out, and I'm gonna insert these into the cylinder and make sure they fit. But I really need to invest in one of these case length gauges, and there's several manufacturers that make them. Dillon happens to be the one that I'm using here, the Dillon. You can, L.E. Wilson makes them. There's several companies. Sinclair I think makes them, but case length gauges, they're really good to have. And anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I think you heard me talk long enough. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you got some good information out there, and I want you to feel free to leave a comment if you like something, or if you have a request on something specific that you might want to see me do. If it's something that I'm capable of doing, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll definitely get a video out there for you showing you what I do. I reload 30-06. I don't know if you saw my video on 30-06. That was put out a while back. I do 30-30s, do 38s, 9mm, 45s, 44 mag, obviously the 45 Colt, 223, several others I can't think of right now. But if you have any comments, feel free to leave them. Please keep the comments clean, and I hope you found some good information here, and have a great day. Thanks. Happy reloading.